Any minute now. Yes, sir. We're doing fresh server. You playing? I think the group that I'm gonna be leveling with, yeah, I'm gonna be starting with the mage, but then I'm gonna be leveling a paladin afterwards. I think we're gonna be doing back-to-back characters. Yeah, mage is gonna be in such a good state. I mean, it's been in a good state, but should be fun. What server are you gonna play on? Oh yeah. Nice. Are you playing with the group or what? Yeah, Meladath is on east, Skyfury's on west. We're gonna be heading to Skyfury. Yeah, I think the guild, because a buddy of mine just found the guild, so I think they're still recruiting. You wanna just add me on Discord if you haven't already, and I'll send you an invite to the Discord. We're going Alliance also. Or message me on Discord, and I'll give you an invite to the Discord, for the guild that we're gonna play with, if you want. Yo, thinking you still there? Yo, thinking if you're still there, do you want me to invite you to the Discord? We're making a guild on Skyfury, so you're welcome to join us. Hey Turk, no, I'm in A. No, servers went down about an hour ago. Yeah, they gave us anywhere between 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. that they'll be up. So it's uh, 9 a.m. So actually it's been down for 2 hours. So we still got like 5 hours maybe. Hopefully it comes up earlier though. We'll see. Did the servers come up in EU already, or they're gonna come up in 30 minutes? Yeah, I think it's only 2 new realms. So the other realms still stay there, but there's only 2 new ones. And I think it's 2 new realms per region. Because I know there's a new one on East, and then there's another one. I think there's 2 here on West, and then 2 on East, I think, too. Not sure about Oceanic. But one's PvE, and then one's PvP. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the new servers are gonna be the fresh start servers, so should be fun. What you gonna play, Tarek? What class? feeling that song. Try this playlist. Can we just have the servers come up, please? Hey, what's up, Sebastian? I hope soon, man. It's between now and 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. So hopefully sooner than later. Definitely the worst part, waiting. Yeah, for sure, man. I guess when the servers come up, just send me a tell in game. Or add me on Discord. Let's watch this video. Is window capture.
The WotLK Classic pre-patch has tons of content to offer and ways for you to prepare for our next journey leading into Northrend. My name is Willie. Join me today as we check out 10 features in the WotLK Classic pre-patch. First order of business is going to be ensuring that you have a character that can actually get to Northrend when the expansion releases on September 26th. For this, you'll need to be at least level 68, though for several reasons it won't be too difficult to get all the way to 70. First of all, in the pre-patch, you can now buy the flying skill at level 60, down from 70. Expert flight speed has been increased from 60% to 150%, and the cost halved to 250 gold, which isn't too much of an investment for how incredibly useful it will be. There's also currently a bonus 50% experience buff to all activities in the game, which will persist up to the date of the launch. On top of that, the experience required per level also gets completely squished in the pre-patch too. Some levels need up to 45% less XP, though things do start to taper off somewhat by level 70. And if you wanted something different to quests and dungeons while leveling, even Battlegrounds will now give experience. There are so many options on why hitting level cap is going to be a breeze in the pre-patch. But maybe you don't have a character and you want to make a start playing the new hero class, the Death Knight. You may remember back in Wrath originally, Death Knights released alongside launch and required a level 55 character to already exist on your account. This is no longer the case. Death Knights will become playable during the pre-patch and do not have any prerequisite requirements or characters needed on your account at all. There are now a few restrictions instead, but your first DK is very much a free level 55. For some other players, you may be looking for a total fresh start. Well, there's good news there as well. Alongside the pre-patch launching, we also have Fresh Start Realms. These are very much what you expect. Everyone begins at level 1, no developed economy, equal footing for each and every player. The slate is wiped clean. Oh, and yes, on these servers you do have to level a character to 55 before you can make a Death Knight. Once you've leveled your character up, the Burning Crusade in its current state offers the most ways to gear up that it ever has. We have your standard dungeons, heroic dungeons, and 10 and 20.
What did you say?
Crusade in its current state offers the most ways to gear up that it ever has. We have your standard plate is wiped clean. Oh, and yes, on these servers you do have to level a character to 55 before you can make a Death Knight.
Oh, wow.
Once you've leveled your character up, the Burning Crusade in its current state offers the most ways to gear up that it ever has. We have your standard dungeons, heroic dungeons, and 10 and 25-man raid content. The need to complete any achievements to access raid content have been removed from the game for a little while now, so you can go wherever you want. Badges of Justice will also drop from all raid content and heroic dungeons, which can be turned in at vendors in Shatrath or at the Isle of Quel'Danas for high-end raiding gear. Additionally, honoured with a number of Outland reputations, allow you to buy rare quality PvP focused gear, which isn't bad gear to start off with at level 70, and if you're leveled mainly through questing, you're more than likely going to be honoured with nearly all the reputations needed. PvP is also a good option for gearing up, with loads of gear being purchasable for honour, including the Season 4 PvP sets. And finally, during the pre-patch, the Scourge Invasion event will offer several Karazhan equivalent pieces of gear that can be easily farmed in the open world. More on that in a moment. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos we've got coming up on the channel for WotLK Classic. Alongside the pre-patch comes the spell and talent reworks for each and every class and specialization in the game. WotLK Classic really shakes up how your class plays, adding loads of procs, iconic new abilities, and just general utility. Some of the standout additions that have become a core part of your class fantasy over the years are the likes of Bladestorm for Arms Warriors, Chaos Bolt for Destruction Warlocks, and of course Lava Burst for Elemental Shaman. Whatever you play, it gets even better in WotLK, and you'll have an easier time exploring or swapping between your specializations to another addition, a dual specialization. You can activate this at your class trainer from level 40 and onwards. However, in WotLK, it will set you back 1,000 gold. That's a one-time payment that needs to be done on every single character. From then onwards, you can create 2 separate talent, glyph, and action bar sets that you can swap between anytime you are out of combat. This is a great addition to the game, and it makes swapping between roles on the fly so much easier. It's not only your class that will be getting revamped for the pre-patch though, professions will also be totally overhauled, getting them into their Wrath of the Lich King state. The biggest addition is the new profession, Inscription. This can be leveled up during the pre-patch as a great chance to make some gold or just glyph out your main character. Keep in mind, not every single glyph in the game will be available during the pre-patch, as for some of them you need to be in Northrend, but any glyph is better than none. Glyphs themselves are split into major that modify a spell in a large way, such as lowering its cooldown, increasing the effect, or adding utility, and minor glyphs which are more or less all quality of life or cosmetic focused, such as removing the reagent requirement from a spell or increasing buff durations. You can't talk about the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch
Pre-patch is today. We're just waiting for servers to come up. So they'll be up anytime between now and 5 hours.
Not bring up the zombie plague. Don't think I forgot about it. It's hard to put in words exactly what you should anticipate from this event, but expect complete and utter chaos to envelop the world of Azeroth during the week that it persists. It starts off very slow and inconspicuous, with disease crates appearing in Booty Bay, and by the end of the event, if you aren't a zombie, your friendly fellow players will make sure that you are within the space of a few minutes. This is truly one of World of Warcraft's most legendary moments, and it is rare you get a second chance to experience something on this scale again. If you do one thing, log in at peak time and see what Orgrimmar or Stormwind looks like a few days into the plague. You won't regret it, until you get turned into a zombie, that is. There are also many new limited time rewards offered during the pre-patch. This will take place after the zombie plague has completed and the Scourge invasion begins. Attacking these invasion points and defeating Scourge though will earn players necrotic runes. These can be turned into Argent Quartermasters in faction capitals for a variety of rewards. An epic set of gloves and shoulders can be bought for 15 runes each. These are super easy to farm in the open world, even for fresh level 70 characters. Consecrated Sharpening Stones and Blessed Wizard Oil are 8 runes each. These are powerful weapon buffs to help against the Scourge and can be useful going into Northrend as well. There are also a number of trinkets which are more for fun and flavour, such as the Argent Warhorn that calls a paladin to your side who will assist you in battle for a short duration and then bubble hearth away. Typical. Finally, as the invasion progresses, certain dungeons as well as a raid will have new bosses spawning in them. Now, the lower level dungeon bosses appearing the likes of Scholomance, Stratholm, all the way down to Shadowfang Keep are more just for a few extra bits of loot to help out your leveling characters. The one that most people will be interested in will be Tenris Mirkblood in Karazhan. He drops 2 notable items, the Vampiric Battling, a new companion pet, as well as the Arcanite Ripper. This epic upgrade of the iconic Arcanite Reaper makes a return with upgraded stats, and most importantly, the ability to unleash a face melter. To this day, this weapon remains a crown in the jewel of players' collection pieces. You better believe the competition to try and grab this whilst it's there will be fierce. And there we have it, 10 things that you can check out or work towards in the WotLK Classic pre-patch. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe for more WotLK Classic content, and we'll see you in Azeroth very soon.
Nice.
Here we go. This is a video. This is actually talking about the new Wrath of the Lich King LFG system. For you guys that didn't know, they're not doing the LFG system for Wrath of the Lich King, at least on release. The only concern that I have is players that are playing a really unbalanced faction. Like, it's a well-populated server, but 99% of the players are one faction. So, like, if you're part of that 1% or 3% people that's like Alliance or Horde in whichever server you're on, like, your experience in the game is really bad, and LFD made that easier. So I hope they have a way for people like that to be able to, you know, either leave that server or play with other people. Here we go.
Going into Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard has fully moved into doing things as #some changes,
Which
and
is
frankly,
good.
they've ended up changing a lot of things in a really positive way.
I like how he didn't mouse over it, but he showed it with the body types 1 and 2. I don't know why body type 2 you can't have a bare chest. That's crazy, isn't it? Isn't that weird? There's like no option for that. I tried to look and there's none.
Death Knights in the pre-patch, cooldowns resetting after a boss encounter ends, changes to Wintergrasp to make it more accessible, and so on. And I'm all for it. If you want a different game from retail, it's got to start doing things differently. This to me points towards Blizzard wanting to take Classic long term, not just, hey, let's do Wrath and then wrap it up. In fact, I strongly believe they will do Kata and beyond. But today,
I feel very uncertain about whether they're going to do Cataclysm or not. I think that if you looked at, like, let's say 100% of people wanted Classic Vanilla.
You can't hear it?
Like, I'd say 90%
1
of
second.
people
Is it too
want
low, or you
Classic
just
for
can't hear it,
100%.
period?
And then maybe 85 to 80%, probably closer to 85. A lot of people have, like, really good nostalgia of Wrath, wanted Wrath of the Lich King. I feel like in Cataclysm, that 85 to 80% goes down to, like, 50. Like, I view, like, Vanilla, BC, and Wrath as, like, the original trilogy. And then after that, the game changed. So I'm not as certain as he is about them releasing Classic Cataclysm. I find it unlikely. Yeah, 25%. Yeah, a lot less people want Classic Cata. I feel
What
like
about now?
the
Is it better?
nostalgia wears
Or does it
off
need to go up
after
more?
Wrath of the Lich King for a lot of people. But if they were like, okay, so after Wrath, we're going to have Mists of Pandaria, and then after Mists of Pandaria, we're going to have Legion. And people are like, what about Cataclysm or WoD? Well, what do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, no, yeah, so this is a release schedule, and that's just about it. Yep, problem solved.
Today we have a topic which I already know has solidly divided the community.
Yeah.
Something which
Nice.
it's easy to remember as a core feature of Wrath as an expansion when it didn't initially release until right near the end.
Yeah, this didn't come out until like whenever ICC was released, and it had been out for a while.
Looking for dungeon tool. Almost everything you see online has people arguing back and forth about its inclusion or lack thereof in this expansion. The forums, Reddit, I even ran a poll a while ago and more people were in favor of having this feature make a return than leaving it out. But Blizzard, thus far, has remained adamant that the LFD we once knew will not be in Wrath.
I don't think that you need LFD. I just think that you need a good group finder. Like, for example, not having it be automated, I think is probably okay, but I don't see why, like, you can't just, like, queue directly into the dungeon, because there were a lot of advantages. I think that LFD back then would teleport you to the dungeon. I'm pretty sure it did, and that was a really big bonus on its own.
And it will instead be replaced with an LFM type feature, not too dissimilar from what they have on retail. In a previous video I've said let's see what they will do, let's see what their vision is for this new system, and then we can talk about it. Well, I've seen it, and it's time to talk about it. Let's cover everything known about the new LFM system, the good and the bad of how it currently works, and what I would have liked to see. Before we continue, a quick word from today's sponsor, Dragon Raja. Dragon Raja is a free-to-play MMORPG available on mobile and PC. Developed with Unreal.
I love how it has, like, just a random guy in a suit walking through a fucking tundra that's, like, there's, like, this guy with a scythe and he's a worm.
Engine 4, Dragon Raja is an industry-leading title that combines the ease of access of mobile games with the graphics you can find on PC
I don't know
in your
about that.
pocket. Featuring a wide open world, an innovative and diverse career system, and tons of customization options, Dragon Raja truly has something which will fit every type of player. This latest month's update in Dragon Raja is the Rainbow Route, an easy way for players trying the game to have access to some rich rewards. Dragon Raja currently features 11 different classes, from spellcasters to ninjas, warriors, and more. You can also team up with others and take on PvE encounters or PvP. The career system goes well.
What a surprise, it has PvP. I wonder if it's equalized.
Beyond what MMORPGs usually have. Not only do you have your standard ones like chef, but also bartender, or artist, or even a blogger. Dragon Raja has a huge open world to discover.
Wait, in this game you can be a blogger as a class in a video game? I mean, I guess we have, like, Goat Simulator, and, like, Farming Simulator, and Trucker Simulator. So, like, what do you do as a blogger? Like, you just, like, sit in your house all day, you go to Starbucks, and, you know, you leech their Wi-Fi because you can't afford it at home because you don't make any money? Like, I don't know.
But with endless possibilities. Jump through the world with parkour or soar above others by gliding. You can also use these codes for free in-game rewards. These will be below in the description as well as the pinned comment. You can download Dragon Raja right now on the following link and start your next adventure. Many thanks to Dragon Raja for the sponsor today. Let's talk WoW.
Absolutely
We should start with a quick reminder of what the true to last patch Dungeon Finder resembled from original Wrath.
I think that the problem with Dungeon Finder, and this is what happened in Cataclysm, is that I actually, going back, there was a few bosses that were really hard. I think the best example is like Ozruk in Stonecore. He was like the third boss after the dragon. He was really hard to beat. Like, actually, like, it was a genuinely hard boss. However, a lot of the other bosses were not hard. The Cataclysm Heroics on release were not hard. The problem was that the random Dungeon Finder put you in a group with a bunch of other dumbasses that didn't know anything, and it was really hard to do in a random group because you had to CC a few mobs and, you know, like, maybe have a little bit of planning at the beginning. So that's what the issue was. Like, I did this all the time with my guild. We never had trouble with the heroics. Like, except for that one boss. That boss was a motherfucker. But besides that, it was okay. So I think the problem really is that grouping people up in a random Dungeon Finder, whenever the Dungeon Finder creates fail states at too high of a rate. Like, there was such a high rate of fail states with the Dungeon Finder in Cataclysm, that's why the dungeons got nerfed. It's the same reason why people didn't want to do Halls of Reflection or the Oculus back in Wrath, is that it just had a very high rate of fail states. That's all it comes down to.
Really simple, in fact. There are bonuses in the form of badges for random or daily dungeons. You pick your role, pick whether you want any random or specific dungeon from normal or heroic, press Q, and that is it. As a tank you wait roughly 2 seconds, a DPS about 20 minutes, and healers somewhere in between. You pops, you press accept, you get teleported to the dungeon, and you begin. It would also search cross-server to greatly improve queue times. And then at the end of the dungeon or upon leaving, you're teleported back to where you were originally. It really was, you push a button and you get teleported to a dungeon. Here is our new version. Let's start with the good stuff. Straight away, there's more to this than just being a dungeon finder. This tool covers all group-based activities from dungeons, raids, open world, PvP.
I will say that for high-end, like end-game players, I think like not having a dungeon finder is like kind of okay. But for like, if you're like level 47, you're realistically not going to do Maraudon unless there's a dungeon finder that queues you over there. You see what I'm saying? There's like no way you're going to go out of your way to go do Maraudon. So, I think it's better and it's good for players while they're leveling up to do the dungeons. Because I just think it's a more well-rounded, fun experience than not doing them. So if they had the group finder for like lower level dungeons, I would be totally fine with that. That's actually kind of like what we have right now in retail WoW, is like the group finder. Nobody uses the group finder for dungeons except for low level players, because Mythic you have to run to the dungeon. Mythic Plus you have to run to the dungeon. Whenever you think about it, that's what everybody's doing. Like they're probably even like casual players are probably doing Mythic 0s or Mythic 2s or 3s. So nobody's just like spamming heroics constantly. At least I feel like there's not that many of those people, and they don't even see that. So I think that I think that making it to where lower level players can use the dungeon finder is probably a good thing. And then maybe by the time that like Ulduar comes out or TOC comes out, where people have like a higher baseline of gear, maybe the random group finder would be more okay. Because that way you will have people that are better geared and you will have less fail states with the group finder. Because you just, again, you don't want to have, it feels really bad whenever you get queued into a group and everybody is undergeared and they're bad and you keep wiping and you can't do anything about it. And Blizzard put this group together for you and you can't kick extra people out because of the vote kick restrictions. It just sucks.
And Goldshire stuff. Each tab gives good options on all available content, including old world content such as open world PvP objectives or vanilla raids, if you ever wanted to do those for some reason. Now, in order to post in the LFG channel, players will have to be listed on the group finder somewhere, which should significantly cut out the amount of spam that will be seen. The create listing part of the tool is fine to me. It gives enough options, and there's a text box where you can add extra bits on. It does its job. There's also good reporting options available on the UI, so you can get rid of any want to sell spam fairly easily. Side note, I'm assuming this tool becomes available at level 10 or 15. I forget exactly what it was originally, but if it's for all content, it will be available at a low level. I'm quite sure about that. On retail, they had to add a bunch of restrictions as to who can post in the LFM to stop people selling services. Then,
which is like, I think that's crazy. It's insane to me that, because like the LFG, like this is a global listing or like a region-wide listing. How is it that one person per like 8 hours, right, in an 8-hour shift can't just right-click and remove the accounts that are selling things? Why can't you just hire one person and have them just click and remove that? I don't understand it.
Again, if you do need to be at least levels 10 or 15, that's an investment that has to be undertaken. And it's not like we have trial accounts in Classic either. Well, at the moment at least. So it should be fine in terms of not having too much spam, but it will be on the players at the end of the day to report stuff and actually make it usable. So those, I would say, are the main benefits. Onto the parts where I think there are problems. This is related to the group browser part of the tool. You can list your class as a role you cannot do. Why is this a thing? So I understand some groups may end up running dungeons where they do 4 DPS, 1 healer once they get enough gear, or maybe even 5 DPS as DKs, who knows? And that's fine. you just advertising the extra
I
tech.
remember back in Wrath, like, how would you do ramparts? 5 DKs. Maybe you get like a paladin or something like that to heal you. But most of the time, 5 DKs.
Xbox that you're going to be doing that. But if I'm a warlock, why can I set myself as a healer? What am I going to be creating health stones and handing out bandages? In fact, if I list myself as a role my class cannot do, it just says no roles have been filled on the UI. I don't see why this exists. When you
It seems like an obvious oversight.
request to join a group, it doesn't show what specialization you're playing. If you need a healer and a DPS and a shaman joins, they have to confirm that in text. Same problem when combining groups, just on a larger scale. Nothing's really known about who is joining your party. Group delistings are auto-updated on the UI, but not changes to the size of the party, i.e. people joining or leaving. Means you have to press refresh a lot. The group finder UI isn't movable or resizable. It looks the part, but finding a group will be an ongoing effort of spamming refresh. I'd want to keep it somewhere where it's taking up a bit less of the real estate of my screen. So those are the main issues for me, and aside from that, this tool really has to be better than the looking for group bulletin board add-on. If you don't consider the bulletin board add-on instantly obsolete when this tool officially releases, it's just not good enough. It should.
I think I don't understand why Blizzard doesn't just take what they have in retail WoW. Just do that. I feel like just take that tool and just put it in Wrath. I think that maybe they're worried about classic players getting upset that there's something from retail being put into Wrath of the Lich King. But in my opinion, I think it's just the best version of the tool that exists, and so just put that in the game.
Should be immediately and clearly an upgrade which everybody will want to use. The worst case scenario here is the player base split between using 2 separate sources for doing the same thing. Even using both should be considered a loss here, as the whole idea with the LFG tool is it takes spam out of the chat and into a tool where people can easily and quickly match with each other. The LFG tool in its current state is not better than the bulletin board add-on. It's a competitor to it, not strictly an upgrade. In terms of the thing bulletin board does better, it's resizable, it auto-updates when new posts come in the chat, and the UI has more customization options for appearances.
It looks better. And this is also, like, I would say this is probably even a little bit better than what they have in game. In terms of, like, how long the group's been there. Yeah, this is just, like, small quality of life features. Like, I think that, like, what should stay classic, I feel like friction that is created by, like, bad systems or, like, bad menus, that's not really classic WoW. That's just annoying. It's like there were certain things back in the day that they just didn't have the technology for. The timer's great. Yeah, I think so too. I'll be right back. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Okay, I'll use the bathroom. I'll be good. Couldn't get groups my pally. I could always find groups. It was never an issue back in like original Wrath.
On to the second part of the video, feature criticism. Aside from how the tool works, will it do its job? So I want to highlight a few things here. With the retail tool, 99% of the time it's being used for a specific activity. You list that you're doing a specific Mythic Plus dungeon or a specific raid. It's tailored to finding a group for one activity. In Wrath, at least early game, you want to do heroic dungeons. Literally any of them for badges. How is being saved factored into this? Are you just going to join a group and find out, oh no, I'm saved for that dungeon that you want to do, sorry guys, bye bye? Mind you, early on in new retail expansions, people do world tours of Mythic Zero for gear, and that seems to work out okay in my experience, so maybe...
I think, honestly, just queuing up and just asking somebody, are you saved? I don't think that you necessarily need a lot of restrictions for this. You just ask somebody, like, are you saved to the instance? And they're like, no. Okay, all right, you zone in, that's it. Right? It's not, I don't see this as, like, really that big of a deal.
You being saved isn't a problem. What about before the end game though? Not having LFD for leveling is a real shame. There's nothing else to be said about it. Imagine hitting up the hinterlands questing for a while and thinking, gee, I could sure go for a run in Maridon, for example. Let me just spend 30 minutes.
Well, that's the exact fucking dungeon that I said. Because that's the one that nobody ever fucking wants to go to. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing remotely close to it. There's no flight paths nearby. Even getting to the dungeon is fucking annoying. So, yeah, exactly. Just like Maridon. Perfect.
Getting there, specifically for vanilla content, the world is huge. And with XP being squished between levels 10 and 60 in TBC and 60 to 70 in Wrath, there's just not really as much need to run dungeons. In vanilla, it made sense to prepare your quest log for dungeons because there was so much experience needed to level up. Nowadays, this just isn't the case anymore. It feels like people, if they aren't already, which I think they are, will largely skip anything which is out of the way and will just do the dungeons which are really conveniently placed.
Exactly.
Hello, Stockades, Zul'Farrak, and so on. And let's be honest, nobody's going to be running to the entrance of Sunken Temple again, are they? Do you remember how—
No, there's a fucking dragon in the middle of it. Why would you go? He's right there. He's right there. Like, well, you don't want to fucking deal with that shit. He's an elite too. Fuck that. So I think there's a lot of people, again, it's that you just have to design things expecting that people are going to be lazy. Because that's the truth. That's what's going to happen. People are going to be fucking lazy.
how far you have to run to get inside that place? For vanilla, there is certainly an argument for teleporting to dungeons, or at least to the meeting stone outside of dungeons, maybe with a cooldown. For TBC and Wrath content, I think the whole traveling to dungeons is actually completely fine. Everything is in the zone where you're currently leveling. For the
that is only so like the only exception there is Caverns of Time dungeons, but yeah.
Most part anyways. When you want to do Hellfire dungeons, you're a few minutes
right
away
there.
and you're leveling in Hellfire. Same for Zangarmarsh at low level 60s, Alkindun at middle level 60s, and so on. And in Wrath, there's 150% flying speed mounts, which are really cheap, that you can buy from level 60. So not too many excuses on getting there yourself, I don't think. Same goes for Wrath. The dungeons are in the zone that's already appropriate for your level. And for level cap and endgame stuff, again, flying mounts, it's just not really too far. Sure, the queue system is better and more convenient, but I just don't think it's a big deal. I think the whole keeping stuff same server is also worth trying. It may not pan out long term, but let's try something different. Let's give it a go. Honestly,
I think that if they're going to keep things same server, the Blizzard devs should just be honest with themselves. If you are on a server that's like super low pop, I don't feel like you should be punished with really long queue times because Blizzard can't manage their servers. They should combine the LFG systems and stuff like that, if they do this later on, with other servers, if they're the small servers. Like big servers, no, there's no reason to need that, right? But like, let's say you're Horde on Benediction or Alliance on Faralina, you're gonna have a bad time. It's a bummer. Yeah, it's just, it's not a good time.
Don't think people play into community nearly as much as they used to, like not even remotely close. But repeat groups with people can happen, and it less frequently leads to toxic behavior. And if it does, hey, that person goes straight on the ignore list and you know you're never gonna see them again.
Bro, like, see, that's like, it's weird for me because like, you know what I used to do is like, whenever I was level 80, I got level 80, I always just ran the heroics every day with my guild. I never even played with anybody else that wasn't in the guild. And then by the time that, like, we did Nax 10 a couple of times, so I didn't need to do heroics anymore, really. Like, except for I was like a trinket that I needed, as like a mirror or some fucking bullshit, and like 2 other things that I kind of needed. But like, I probably didn't buy them so I could make the loot council feel sorrier for me, and then they'd give me the items out of the raid, right? Because I still had blues. So that's like thinking back on my mindset back then, that's what I would probably do. So yeah, the trinket, exactly.
Actually,
makes this take way too long.
So about 2 days ago, there was a Reddit post put up about the concerns about the new LFG tool on the beta. I reached out to the author of the post and asked if he wouldn't mind me covering it in a video, because actually it's really good. Some really well thought out points. You're probably like, what?
I just want more information on this.
Going into Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard has fully moved into doing things as #some change stuff and actually make it usable. So those, I would say, are the main benefits. Onto the parts where I think there are problems. This is related to the group browser part of the tool. You can list your class as a role you cannot do. Why is this a thing? So I understand some groups may end up running dungeons where they do 4 DPS, 1 healer once they get enough gear, or maybe even 5 DPS as DKs, who knows? And that's fine, you just advertise in the extra text box that you're going to be doing that. But if I'm a warlock, Why can I set myself as a healer? What am I going to be, creating health stones and handing out bandages? In fact, if I list myself as a role my class cannot do, it just says no roles have been filled on the UI. I don't see why this exists. When you request to join a group, it doesn't show what specialization you're playing. If you need a healer and a DPS and a shaman joins, they have to confirm that in text. Same problem when combining groups, just on a larger scale. Nothing's really known about who is joining your party. Group delistings are auto-updated on the UI, but not changes to the size of the party, i.e. people joining or leaving, means you have to press refresh a lot. The group finder UI isn't movable or resizable. It looks the part, but finding it's just not good enough. Not strictly an upgrade. In terms of being used for a specific activity, you list that you're doing okay in my experience, so maybe being saved isn't a problem. What about before the end game though? Not having LFD for leveling is a real shame. There's nothing else to be said about it. Imagine hitting up the hinterlands, questing for a while and thinking, gee, I could sure go for a run in Maridon, for example. Let me just spend 30 minutes getting there. Specifically for vanilla content, the world is huge. And with XP being squished between levels 10 and 60 in TBC and 60 to 70 in Wrath, there's just not really as much need to run dungeons. In vanilla, it made sense to prepare your quest log for dungeons because there was so much experience needed to level up. Nowadays, this just isn't the case anymore. It feels like people, if they aren't already, which I think they are, will largely skip anything which is out of the way and will just do the dungeons which are really conveniently placed. Hello Stockades, Zul'Farrak, and so on. And let's be honest, nobody's going to be running to the entrance of Sunken Temple again, are they? Do you remember how far you have to run to get inside that place? For vanilla, there is certainly an argument for teleporting to dungeons, or at least to the meeting stone outside of dungeons, maybe with a cooldown. For TBC and Wrath content, I think the whole traveling to dungeons is actually completely fine. Everything is in the zone where you're currently leveling. For the most part anyways. When you want to do Hellfire dungeons, you're a few minutes away and you're leveling in Hellfire. Same for Zangarmarsh at low level 60s, Alkindun at middle level 60s, and so on. And in Wrath, there's 150% flying speed mounts which are really cheap that you can buy from level 60, so not too many excuses on getting there yourself, I don't think. Same goes for Wrath. The dungeons are in the zone that's already appropriate for your level, and for level cap and endgame stuff, again, flying mounts, it's just not really too far. Sure, the queue system is better and more convenient, but I just don't think it's a big deal. I think the whole keeping stuff same server is also worth trying. It may not pan out long term, but let's try something different. Let's give it a go. Honestly, I don't think people play into community nearly as much as they used to, like not even remotely close. But repeat groups with people can happen, and it less frequently leads to toxic behavior. And if it does, hey, that person goes straight on the ignore list and you know you're never going to see them again. As for actually having to list yourself to find a dungeon, this is the bit that I don't like and I think misses the mark across the entire system. I'd be down for automatic grouping if it's same server for all areas of content, as in you list yourself for what you want to do. When the game finds 4 other people with a similar interest, you get a party assembled ready check, everybody presses yes, your group is assembled, and then you will make your way to the dungeon. Chances are you may even run multiple dungeons with these people. For vanilla content, I just don't believe dungeons will be run often due to how leveling is structured and spread out. I would be fine in this instance being teleported to the dungeon or at least the meeting stone. For TBC and beyond, I think the run wherever you are in the world is short enough to dungeons to be okay. There is the case where you're in Stormwind or Orgrimmar and you want to go to a dungeon in Northrend. Then again, Hearthstones are only on a 30-minute cooldown now, and if it's not up, there should be 2 other people that can go to the meeting stone. So my ideal LFG does still involve automation to assemble a group. You keep it same server, you teleport to dungeon or meeting stone for vanilla content, you run to the dungeon for TBC and Wrath content. It keeps the whole social same server thing that Blizzard want to do going. Interactions through the LFG tool are very sparse. Often it's just going to be the leader sorting through the 452 DPS applications they've received to see which mage has the highest item level. Auto grouping is really beneficial for casual players who want to do some chill dungeons. Wrath is by far the most casual friendly World of Warcraft has been in the classic timeline so far, and it stops the inevitable, this will happen by the way, XYZ item is reserved, no clothies because the leader's a warlock, and so on and so forth meta. And it also doesn't stop people from being able to form groups within their own social circles or guilds if that's what they prefer. I think this is a win-win. Not only is it better than what the LFG is currently in Classic, it's better than what we had in Wrath as well. This would overhaul the whole system though, so I don't expect it to happen. But at least I also included some feedback for how the current tool works as well. Hopefully that can be looked at before we launch late September. That's about everything for today though. It's quite a divisive topic, so we'll see how this goes. I'm expecting a lot of comments on this one. Do let me know your thoughts though. Any feedback I think is a positive thing. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one.
I wonder
Very
if this
soon.
is going to be in for the pre-patch. Probably not.
Change. It's always been a rather scary word for Classic WoW fans, since Blizzard originally stated they're going to be recreating this world all the way from the very beginning. At the start of Classic, the community and Blizzard united behind the idea that the game should be released as close as possible to #no changes. We want it to be how it was, all of the cool RPG aspects, the class flavor, the leveling journey, as well as the honor and ranking system without battlegrounds and world buffs. And we got that. Oh boy, did we get that. Moving from TBC and soon enough into Wrath of the Lich King, as a once war chief of the Horde would say, "Times change." The player base is dramatically different, as is the outlook on the game. 3 years ago, suggesting looking for dungeons should be a feature of the game would get you buried in downvotes. Now it's quite a popular opinion. And then even Blizzard themselves recently put up a long post regarding the design pillars for Classic moving forwards, officially stating that they will be embracing a #some changes design philosophy and reopening those floodgates anew for the potential good changes and maybe the bad. Today I want to recap 10 of the largest changes that Wrath of the Lich King Classic will have when compared to the original release of the game from 2008. Some of these are completely new features, others are reactions to how the player base has changed, and some are just some nice quality of life additions. So if you played back in Wrath originally, expect things to be a bit different this time around, though I would still say at its core it's very much going to be a Wrath of the Lich King experience through and through. Before we go on, I want to do a quick shout out to a world where they're sick of the usual orcs, elves and dwarves. Let's talk about Hero Wars, a free-to-play action RPG. Hero Wars has characters to suit every type of player, from cyborgs to aliens, vampires, and even druid mains will find something relatable as part of the cast. Some of the cool heroes that you can get are Chabba, he's a tank that literally devours his enemies whole, or Celeste, who can easily swap between a DPS, focus, dark, or shadow form, and a healer, light form. Sound familiar at all? Also, the outfits that drop aren't too bad either. Hero Wars stands out in the genre with no equals. You'll find yourself playing when you're traveling, at lectures, or even at the same time as something else. It's super easy to get started, but assembling the perfect team comp is an art in itself. For example, Mojo the Shaman can't heal Darkstar the Elf as efficiently as good Grandma Martha can, while the Slow Cleaver makes a great pair with the Swift Isaac. Hero Wars is a world of 6 unique modes, more than 300 Guild Wars servers, and 100 million players. You can play alone or see who among you and your friends is the top dog. Oh, and I almost forgot, here's a question for you. Where can you get 30,000 coins, 600 emeralds, and 5 awesome heroes to start dominating in Hero Wars right away? Who's slow? The answer is in the link in the description below. Join the game now and get a super chest with 5 top heroes, one of them is secret, as well as 600 emeralds and 30,000 gold. Scan this QR code or download the game below from the video description. Many thanks to Hero Wars for the sponsor. Let's talk WoW. Let's start off with some cool additions to your character's customization. One feature of Wrath the Lich King that's very well known by everybody is that the barbershop will become available so that you can update your character's look. Now, the original Wrath barbershop was, it was a barbershop in quite a literal sense, in that you would be able to change things you would expect there, such as your hair color, your hairstyle, horns on Tauren or Draenei, markings on Night Elves, and so on. For Wrath Classic, we will have an updated barbershop with loads more options than this. In this new barbershop, you can modify those things we just went over, in addition to your character's face, any piercings or other accessories that they have, and largest of all, your gender. Originally in Wrath, you had to pay real money in order to change from a male to a female character, or vice versa. In Wrath, it's going to be a small fee in-game instead. Blizzard originally removed gender change from the shop alongside the release of Shadowlands, so I am not at all surprised that this change finds its way back to Wrath. And hey, it's free stuff. Imagine having to pay actual money to do this. Next major change is significant alterations to how the battle for Wintergrasp will function. So as of when I'm writing this video, it's currently in the beta stage, and it may very well be that things change in the future, and I'll update as much as I can on it. Anyways, in original Wrath, Wintergrasp was a super fun, frequent activity to take part in. A correct version of Wintergrasp, as per the final patch of the game, would have had it been an up to 120 versus 120 open world PvP zone. You could queue via Battleground Masters or be active in the zone. Every 3 hours a battle would then commence, consisting of that server, i.e. just that server's Horde and Alliance population. The winning side would gain access to additional farming spots, Stonekeeper shard vendors for gear, enchants and more, and most importantly, the raid, Vault of Archivon. In Wrath Classic, here's how it's going to be now. Essentially, it'll be a battleground where you are either active in the zone when the battle begins, or you can queue from Dalaran. As far as I understand it, the new Wintergrasp will be 40 versus 40 and cross server. Again, just imagine it like any other battleground. If anyone on your faction and server is part of a winning Wintergrasp team, your entire faction will gain a buff called Essence of Wintergrasp, which will allow access to the aforementioned rewards, including Vault of Archivon. This means for Wrath Wintergrasp, there's a very strong possibility that both factions will be able to access Vault of Archivon at the same time. Again, we've yet to see this function on the beta, but I'll update below if anything changes from what I expect it to be. So what's the deal here? Why did Blizzard do this? Well, in short, faction balance across the majority of servers on Classic is not very good. Cross-server is more or less going to be required for Wintergrasp to actually somewhat resemble how it would have been back in original Wrath. If they kept it same server only, there just wouldn't have been any meaningful battles for Wintergrasp throughout the entirety of Wrath for the majority of servers. It does seem like quite a drastic change, but I believe it's the correct call given the state of servers, and it shall lead you to having much more engaging games of Wintergrasp. Next up, and I suppose it kind of goes without saying, that Wrath the Lich King, much like every single other version of Classic so far, will begin on the final content patch of the expansion. That will be 3.3.5. And for Wrath, that's going to mean so many things will be completely different from how you would remember them being originally. You know how crazy overpowered Death Knights or Retribution Paladins were on launch? Yeah, they've been toned down now quite a bit. I'm not saying they're bad by any stretch of the imagination, they just aren't "I'm going to completely destroy you whilst being in some level 70 something quest screens" overpowered anymore, and I think that's okay. Compared to TBC and definitely Classic, I'd say overall the class balance is also way improved on the final patch, and the difference between the lower performing specializations and the top ones is not completely night and day. One warrior back in Classic with world buffs could probably out DPS 4 Moonkins with the same buffs, and the warrior wouldn't go either. Also, despite last patch balance, I think Wrath will see more class development and power shifts between who is the top dog on the DPS meters over the course of the expansion. For example, we expect classes such as Fire Mages or Fury Warriors to begin the expansion very slowly and not be very relevant on the damage meters, but by Icecrown Citadel with good gear, they're known to be absolute top performers. Perhaps Wrath Classic will see a good bit of flavour of the patch rerolling. Is that what what we should call it now, than any other iteration of Classic that's come before it, and I think that's something to be excited about. Speaking of PvE though, expect a few changes on that front as well. So in original Wrath, Blizzard, well, they missed the mark a little bit when it came to difficulty. Wrath of the Lich King heroics were a joke when compared to how difficult they've been in TBC, and Tier 7 was just far too watered down and undertuned. In fact, revamped Nax, Eye of Eternity and Sarthamian's Lair were cleared within 2 days of expansion launch. This has never been repeated in any expansion ever. It was just way too easy. With the benefit of hindsight this time around, Blizzard are changing these experiences just a little bit. First up, Blizzard want to not only buff heroic dungeons, but also explore avenues to keep the content relevant beyond getting badges throughout the expansion. In a quote from a recent blue post here, they say, "We're exploring plans to add challenges to heroic dungeons as the expansion proceeds, which would also provide valuable rewards." Nothing else is known at this point, and these changes shouldn't take away from heroics being a good source of badges, but this is a space to watch what happens. As for Tier 7, here's a few more comments from the blue post. Our 2008 design intentions was for it to be a little easier than the 2006 original, but we missed the mark and it ended up being much easier than we intended. Bringing up the difficulty a bit will make it a more fun and interesting challenge while awaiting the opening of Ulduar. So what this has translated to so far is that Tier 7 content has been buffed in health and damage by 30%. Well, that's what it is on the beta at the moment. And in case you're wondering, no, it's still not difficult. And that's okay. In Wrath, we have hard modes and heroics eventually to look forwards to. Not every raid has to be difficult, and Phase 1 is a nice time to sort out your professions or your alts and so on, so I'm okay with this. The only effect it may have is making that leeway for getting immortal or undying a bit more difficult. Next up, you may remember in original Wrath of the Lich King, in order to create a Death Knight, you already had to have an existing character at level 55 or above on your account. This is changing for Wrath Classic. They confirmed the following in a blue post. Your first Death Knight created on any realm is free of restrictions. Any Death Knight created after your first one must be on a different realm and require an existing level 55 character on the same realm, and you may only have one DK per realm. So new or returning players, I think this is pretty amazing news. You can hop straight in and make your Death Knight at level 55 instantly. And on top of this, we're going to be getting access to DKs in the pre-patch. Originally in Wrath, they didn't get them till launch. The date of the pre-patch is still to be determined as of doing this video, probably late August. Reminder, release date is September 26th. On top of this, Classic World of Warcraft currently has a global 50% bonus XP buff to all activities, which is active right now and will persist to the launch of Wrath Classic. All in all, this is a great time for DK fans who missed out on Classic so far, or just for leveling in general, so make the most of it. Next up, fresh servers. Okay, so back in 2008 there were fresh servers as well. This isn't particularly new to Wrath or a change, but I want to mention it because the reason for fresh existing now is so different compared to what it was back in 2008. Then you had fresh because, wow, this game is so popular, the player base numbers keep going up, and the only cross-server tech was for Battlegrounds. They just needed more space to put all of these players. These days, fresh is more for people who feel really far behind the curve. It's for the people who want that new server equal footing feel, or just to experience the launch day rush. Who knows how long it's going to last for this time around, but fresh is always good for some fun, at least for a while. It's also worth a mention that fresh will have the 50% XP buff too, and will release alongside the pre-patch, so keep your eyes out for information on that. News should drop fairly soon. I had to update this part of the video after a blue post quite literally today, but Blizzard have finally decided that in fact there will be paid faction changes in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. They say we're convinced by the argument that being able to play with your friends is more important, and that you should be able to bring your accomplishments with you when you do. This turns out to be the same trade-off provided by transferring between realms, which is already available as a paid service, though it makes sense to make the same decision with respect to race and faction change. Until today, they have maintained that there would be no faction change services in the shop, but now there will be. They also go on to say they're working on adding race and faction change as a paid service in a future patch, which isn't ideal because kind of obviously this service is going to get the most value during the pre-patch and launch by a long way. So though it's coming eventually, not quite when you'd hope for it, keep your eyes out for news. Another good bit of news is that emblems will drop from all raid content at the launch of the game. Blizzard say both 10 player and 25 player raids will drop emblems of Valor at launch, whilst dungeons will drop emblems of heroism. This is overall a bit of a simplification of Wrath's emblem system to where hopefully there will be less currencies overall to get through. Next up, and again this is a bit of a it's working like this on the beta at the moment, I'm not entirely sure how it's going to look at launch one, but that is that 10 and 25 man content is currently sharing a lockout from the start of the expansion. Currently in the beta you can only run 10 or 25 man content once per week. This is an idea that's been taken from how the ICC raid format works, where you can only run each raid size once per week on one difficulty. This was to stop behavior that manifested itself in Trial of the Crusader, where raiders would regularly run the instance 4 times per week for badges and loot. However, this system makes sense in ICC and Trial of the Crusader because heroics exist. In Nax and Ulduar, they don't exist. You've only got 10 man and 25 man. We have an update to go through on this as well the day the video was supposed to go out. I thought to leave this point out and come up with something else, but it's been the first time Blizzard has mentioned this change of mind, and in my opinion it's good news. So here's what they say. We've decided that lockouts should be shared between heroic and normal versions of the raid, but not between 10 and 25 player versions of the raid. You'll be able to do both the 10 man player and 25 player versions of each raid every lockout period, but we'll have to choose between normal and heroic for raids that offer that choice. So in short, you can run tier 7, that's Nax and so on, and tier 8, that's Ulduar, and both 10 and 25 man each week, but you cannot run Trial of the Crusader and ICC 4 times per week on both 10 man normal heroic, 25 normal and 25 heroic. You for example could do 10 man normal, but then you can't do 10 heroic, and you could do 25 man heroic, which means you can't do 25 man normal. On a separate note, they mention that the Trial of the Crusader trinkets will now become unique equipped. They say we also plan to make any trinkets with both normal and heroic versions, such as Death's Verdict, good example, share a unique equipped category so that you can't have both versions of the same trinket equipped at the same time. Now if you go and look at old Wrath the Lich King Basilisk, a ton of them contain double Trial of the Crusader trinkets because they are so powerful. This was fixed in the next tier of ICC, whereas they mention here trinkets gain a unique equip between difficulties. It looks like they're porting this decision back to Trial of the Crusader, so our Basilisks are going to be getting a bit of an update. And finally, you didn't think I'd forget it, right? For somebody out there, this will be the first time that they hear about this, so brace yourself. Wrath of the Lich King Classic will not have the looking for dungeon feature that was in the original one. Why? The short version is unless something literally has to be cross-server for it to work, i.e. Winter Grasp, they're just not going to make it cross-server because they want to protect social interactions within the game and not have people mixing with environments from different servers. Does this suck for leveling? You bet it does. Does this mean people are going to cherry pick classes that they don't share loot within dungeons or that can do the most AoE? Yes, 100%. And that's how things are going to be. Instead of the LFD tool, we have a modified version of the looking for more tool from retail, which is what people mainly use to put together POG raids for normal or heroics, or search for groups for Mythic Plus. Again, it's currently in its beta stage, as are many of the changes that I've gone over here, and I expect it to change a little bit more before the release of the expansion. There are a bunch more things which I could go over, but I think there's a 10 fairly solid changes to get you started and give you an impression of how Blizzard are intending to do things a little bit differently this time around. I could definitely do a follow-up on this video. If there's anything big you think I missed off that you'd like to see, do drop it down below and share your thoughts on Blizzard's changes so far. Do you think they're doing a good job with these changes, or should have we just stuck to no changes and this isn't worth the effort? In any event, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Hey guys, Tasif here. I wanted to make a quick video going over what is happening with Wrath pre-patch, all of the really big, key, most notable changes being introduced to Classic WoW with Wrath pre-patch, which is in 5 or 6 days from now, because there seems to be a lot of confusion or obfuscation of facts and people kind of don't know what's going on. I've noticed this is based off of some interactions I've had on Twitch and in my own Twitch chat and various other people's Twitch chats. So I figured I would make a video and go over all of the really, really big things that go on. Of course, there's like 10 million more little tiny things, but these are the really, really big, exciting things to look forward to, and it's happening very, very soon. The game kind of goes from having nothing to do to having a lot to do just in the next 5 or 6 days. So this is probably one of the single biggest game updates or phases or patches that we've ever had in Classic WoW over the last 3 years as we segue into Wrath and out of TBC. So this is a very, very big deal. So I want to go over these changes and everything new that is being added. So I just have a little bullet point list just to kind of like go through all of this stuff. So this is a list of stuff that happens in, like I said, 5 or 6 days going into Wrath pre-patch. First off, we have the fresh, this is exciting for a lot of you guys, we have the fresh 1 to 70 Wrath of the Lich King servers. This is where you have a clean slate, no one has full Sunwell Plateau best in slot gear or 100,000 gold stockpiled. It's pure, it's fresh, it's the classic WoW fresh, it's what a lot of you guys are waiting for. A lot of us, I'm not really going all in on fresh, so I'm kind of already doing my Wrath of the Lich King preparation and planning for my main characters that I have been playing for the last 3 years. But if you're sort of like sitting on your hands waiting for Wrath to come out, it's these servers, 5 or 6 days, big deal. You also have on both the fresh servers and the current TBC servers, you have the Wrath of the Lich King talent trees. So you're going to have a month or like 3.5 weeks or so where you can be using the Wrath of the Lich King talent trees on your level 70 warrior or with your level 70 warlock as you continue to raid and do some battlegrounds. So it's going to be kind of a weird interim phase where you're level 70, but you're using Wrath talent trees. It's going to be kind of cool, sort of like unexplored meta that we're going to have for 3.5 weeks. It'll be very exciting. We also have the achievement system. If you care about farming achievements or completionism content, I really do. It's one of my big goals for Wrath. This is when you can kind of like officially, unofficially get started. A lot of people have already been pre-farming stuff, myself included, but this is when you actually have your achievement points, your score right in front of you, and you can see exactly what you want to work towards, and you know what you have credit for and what you don't. That's a big deal too if you care about achievement points. If you don't, then whatever, but I care about it. A lot of cool people care about it, so that's going to be exciting also. You also have Death Knights, which start at level 55, and you'll be able to level up to 70 during the pre-patch, and then when Wrath comes out, you can level from 70 to 80 alongside everyone else. But on the fresh servers, the way it works, you need to level a character from 1 to 55, and then you get to 55 on a Paladin or a Warrior or whatever you choose. Once you're 55, then you can make a Death Knight and continue from 55 to 70. On the current TBC servers, you're just going to be able to make a Death Knight. I'm pretty sure, I don't even think you need a 55. I think if you're a new player, you can just make a Death Knight level 55 and get going. Doesn't matter. Also, Kino, if you buy the Classic Wrath Collector's Edition, whatever they're going to end up calling it, the Wrath of the Lich King Super Bonus Pass, who knows, I think it's going to come with a level 70 boost. You will not be able to use your 70 boost on a Death Knight at any point. They haven't mentioned that at all. Only non-Death Knights. You're going to have to level your Death Knight from 55 to 70, regardless of if you're playing fresh or if you're playing the pre-existing classic TBC server that a lot of other people have already been playing on. So there's that little side note. They also add the new profession Inscription, which you can level from 1 to 375 during pre-patch. So if you plan on being an Inscriptionist, you can get going. You can even start, if you're not playing on a fresh server, you can even start pre-farming materials that you can need, that you're going to use whilst leveling Inscription during pre-patch. So you can, on day 1 of Wrath, you can already have 375 maxed out Inscription, and then you continue on from 375 to, I think, 450 is the cap in Wrath. So you can already sort of like be most of the way done with that if you take care of that during pre-patch. So keep an eye out for that if you care about that. Another big change is that there is a 30% XP decrease required from level 60 to level 70. So getting from level 60 to 70 gets 30% easier is what that means. Keep in mind, you also, for the duration of pre-patch up until day 1 of Wrath, you have a 50% XP bonus that has actually been on the current TBC servers for a couple weeks now, but that's going to continue all the way until day 1 of Wrath of the Lich King, which is what, September 30th, another month or so from now. So that's exciting. So if you're, let's say, leveling a Death Knight from 55 to 70, The second you hit 60, from 60 to 70, it's 30% easier than it is right now to level another class. Plus, you get the 50% bonus. So leveling is even if you're on a fresh server, you get the 50% bonus XP. So leveling from 1 to 70 on a fresh server, just in general, it's going to be much faster than you might have experienced in the past. Leveling is going to be quite fast. Beyond that, we get the barbershop where you can change your hairstyle, you can change your facial features, you can change your, not gender, they have removed gender from the game, it is your body type. You can change from body type 1 to body type 2, or if you are currently a body type 2, God forbid, you can now be a body type 1. So that is exciting. It's the barbershop / body type reassignment clinic. And by the way, you can do that as much as you want. One day you can be, one minute you can be body type 1, the next minute you can be body type 2, and then you can swap back immediately as much as you want. So that's cool. Exciting. They're also adding dual spec. Everyone is going to be able to buy dual spec on pre-patch day. It costs 1,000 gold. So it's not too much. It's really quite a good deal when you think about it. So pretty much every single person here is going to want to buy dual spec. Even on your alts, dual spec is a really, really good investment. It will pay for itself very, very quickly. Dual spec, big good, comes out on pre-patch launch day, which is the 30th of August. So just a couple days from now from releasing this video. They also add the mount and pet collection tab. Who here has like 6 pets sitting in your bank and 5 mounts sitting in your bank and it's taking up space, and it's been taking up space for like 2 years and it's very annoying? You can get that stuff out of your bank, out of your bags, and you're gonna free up a bunch of bank slots or bag slots pretty much, so it's very nice. And now, if you're, let's say you're exalted with the Netherwing. The Netherwing has like 6 different Netherwing drakes that you can buy. You probably only bought one of them because first off, they're 200 gold each, I believe. So it would cost over 1,000 gold to buy all of them. Plus, it would take up six bag slots, and it's just like I don't want to do that. So now, not only do these mounts not take bank or bag slots, they are also 1/10 as expensive as they are now. So if a mount, a Netherwing Drake in this case, cost 200 gold on the vendor, on pre-patch day, it will now be 20 gold. So now you can go around, you can buy you can buy all your tall bucks, you can buy all of your Darnassian Night Sabers, you can go buy all the horses, you can go buy all 6 Netherwing Drakes, you can buy all of your Shatari Skyguard Nether Rays, whatever. You can buy all of the mounts, you can start getting your mount collection if that's what you care about. Same for pets, you can go learn all of the pets. Maybe you've been storing them on a bank alt or whatever. You can buy them off the auction house. Now is the time. Being a completionist or a collectionist gets very, very easy going into Wrath, or definitely much easier than it has been so far. So far, it's been very, very annoying. It's taken up a lot of gold and a lot of bank space, which has been really the most prohibitive thing about it. Another thing is all of the current TBC raids get a nerf. I believe the number is just like a flat 30% nerf. I think the bosses have like 30% less HP, and I think the bosses do like 30% less damage. Ballpark. I haven't personally done Sunwell Plateau on the PTR, but I had some friends do it. They said Sunwell is now about the difficulty of Karazhan. That it's just really easy. So cool. That means that if you, for instance, are leveling fast on a fresh server, let's say it takes you a week to get level 70, maybe you could have 3, maybe 4 Sunwell lockouts underneath your belt. So you could have 3 or 4 weeks of Sunwell gear on your fresh server level 70 character that you started from scratch alongside everyone else. You could have Sunwell gear going into day 1 of Wrath. On a Death Knight, you could have a couple weeks worth of Sunwell gear on your fresh Death Knight. That's cool, okay? The faster you level, the more lockouts you have, the more gear you have potentially, so keep that in mind. Maybe that's motivation for you to try to level a little bit more quickly. Speaking of leveling though, funny thing, the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch event is the Scourge Invasion. Pretty much there's these necropolises floating all over Azeroth, and they drop a bunch of ghouls, and they infect you, and it's going to get real bad. There will be a couple days where every NPC in Stormwind or Orgrimmar is a ghoul, and you won't be able to talk to them. The auctioneers will be ghouls. The bankers will be ghouls. They'll be dead. You'll be turned into a ghoul. You're going to die. There will be like 3 or 4 days where the game, if you're in a population center, is going to be like kind of unplayable. It's not going to last forever, just a couple days before they're going to move on to the next phase, and the cure will be found and it's going to be taken care of. But Yeah, that's interestingly enough, that's going to be going on while people are leveling on the fresh servers. So you might be like a level 32, you might be level 32 on the fresh servers and try to go to Stormwind to check the auction house, and the auction house guy is dead, he's a ghoul, and then you get turned into a ghoul and you're gonna get annoyed. It's going to be more funny than anything, but yeah, so that will be for the first couple days probably, or at some point within the first week or two, that will be kind of your fresh server experience. You're going to have to deal with some ghoul play, with some Scourge Invasion play, so keep an eye out for that. But during the Scourge Invasion, you can also get a cool tabard, limited time tabard. You can get some rare armor sets. You can get some rare sort of like toy collection items if you care about those. Another thing in regards to leveling, mounts are now level 20. So the second you hit 20 after pre-patch, you can go buy your 60% ground mount. You hit level 40, you can buy your 100% ground mount. And when you hit level 60, you can buy the basic flying mount, which is no longer 60% speed, it is now 150% speed. Once you hit level 70, you can go and buy your epic flying mount, which is still 280% speed. But pretty much mounts, you can get them sooner, and the basic flying mount, the non-epic flying mount, gets better. It's a pretty big deal. So yeah, it's pretty painful to fly around Outland on a non-epic flying mount going at 60% speed. It really sucks. So now it's not so bad, right? Speaking of gold and stuff, they add the currency tab. Now you can, am I going to get disconnected? Now you can, you don't need to keep your marks of honor from battlegrounds. You don't need to keep your badges of justice. You don't need to keep all these random currencies you get in a game that take up bag space right now when you're playing TBC. You just have a currency tab. You don't need to keep those in your bank or in your bags. It gets much easier. You'll notice that when Wrath pre-patch goes into play, you're going to have a lot more bag space, a lot more bank space, because a lot of things that have, for the last 3 years maybe, been taking up space, they're just in various menus or currency tabs or mount tab or pet tab. It's kind of nice. It kind of is convenient. Beyond that, the final thing, and of course there are 10 million little things also that happen, but these are like, in my mind, the really, really big things. And if you think of some more things I missed, maybe some smaller things, drop them in the comments. So make sure to go check the comments. And while you're down there, hey, subscribe and like the video. Cool, thank you. But the final piece here is they're adding a lot of itemization changes. Most notably, so they are changing the stats on pre-existing items, is what that means. So you might log in on pre-patch day and you'll say, hey, wait a minute, this item I had these stats yesterday and today they have different stats. What's going on? Well, that's because they're changing itemization going into Wrath. Most notably, items that have bonus healing, they're no longer bonus healing items, it just gets converted into spell power. So healing items are now sort of spell power items, that's just the way it is. So actually, as a spellcaster, as a warlock, your new pre-patch BIS item might be a healing item, like, or what was a healing item a day ago, right? Does that make sense? So it's going to be a bit of a shakeup, so keep an eye out. But we're going to have 3.5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to play with pre-patch. We're going to have a lot of time with pre-patch, whereas with the TBC pre-patch, before TBC came out at the end of vanilla, we had 12 days. It was less than 2 weeks. So Blizzard sort of acknowledged that that was not long enough. Our bad at Blizzard here. We're going to give you 3.5 weeks this time. I think that's a good amount of time, and it actually is a good amount of time because there's a lot to do. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of fun things to do. Like I said, a lot of people that are playing TBC right now, there's kind of nothing to do. We're kind of just like waiting for Wrath. And I know you really feel that way if you're just waiting for fresh servers. Because if you're waiting for fresh servers, you're probably not even playing TBC right now. You're just sitting here waiting a couple more days until you can make your level 1 character and get going. But like I said, it's going to, the second pre-patch hits, you go from having like pretty much nothing to do right now to a ton to do the second pre-patch hits. It's going to be a very, very exciting day. And these are the reasons why. So anyway, I thought I'd drop this video because I still see some people being kind of confused or not really sure what's going on. This is my comprehensive, big bullet point list overview. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Like I said, make sure to like the video, subscribe, drop a comment if you think of anything I missed, or give me some feedback. Thank you guys. Hey, go buy Power Gum. This video is sponsored by Power Gum.
In the run-up to Wrath of the Lich King, everybody is doing their own preparation. For some, it's setting up an army of characters ready to Zerg level 80. For others, it's just being high enough level to get into Northrend. And for a few, well, you're still waiting on fresh to drop so you can actually play the game. Today, I want to go over some general preparation tips, which I feel as though are good for everyone, whatever level you are playing at. These are things that I think ideally you want to have done on at least your main, so you aren't having to come back to Classic or TBC content, and you can focus all your attention on getting on with business in Northrend uninterrupted. I don't think there'll be anything too groundbreaking or surprising here which I'm going to go over. They're just some good general use tips. So let's begin. First, I want to do another shout out to Instant Gaming for the continued support on the channel. Don't wait for discounts to appear on Steam or other platforms. Give Instant Gaming a look instead. Find the game you're after, buy a code, apply the code on whichever platform that you need to, download the game, and you are ready to go. It is that easy. Get great games, save money, what's not to like? You can check out the link below to help support the channel. And by entering the giveaway in the description down below, you can win a game of your choice. Thanks again to Instant Gaming for the sponsor. Let's talk WoW. Professions, they change quite a bit in Wrath, with many of them gaining large spikes in power. Much like it was for TBC, it's a good idea to consider which professions you will want before the content drops, and the price for everything starts going through the roof, which is already beginning to happen, by the way. Aside from picking the professions that work for you, you may also not want to level them all the way to 375. The final stretch from 350 to 375 can often be the most expensive and time-consuming part of a profession. In Wrath, there will be new items introduced across all professions which start at 350 that will include Wrath of the Lich King materials, such as handful of cobalt bolts for engineering, to name one. This may end up being a lot cheaper and a lot easier than trying to break through that final barrier of TBC leveling. On top of that, when it comes to professions, make sure your first aid is capped. You want to be able to make the new first aid bandages in the expansion, and if you are a tailor specifically, make sure you talk to the profession trainers when you land in Northrend, wherever that may be, as they'll teach you a passive which allows you to collect more cloth from enemies. Next up, PvP stuff. How is it gonna work in regards to honor and marks from Battleground? So in short, Blizzard has yet to confirm what their plans are, but judging from what happened in the past, we can make some educated guesses. In 2008, when Wrath was releasing, Blizzard initially announced that they did plan to reset honor and marks so that all players were on an equal footing moving forwards. Understandably, a lot of players were not terribly happy at this decision, and Blizzard ended up reversing it shortly after. Also, if we look at Classic and TBC, players also kept their honor points then, which was true to how it was originally as well. So overall, and yes, again, this is to be confirmed, but I would bet Blizzard do not reset honor and marks going into Wrath this time around. This means you should be able to farm out the honor cap of 75,000, as well as collecting as many Battleground marks as you possibly can, which you will then be able to turn in at a new vendor during the Wrath pre-patch for honor as well. Side note about Battleground marks, they stop being a currency for the majority of PvP items, including the PvP mounts. If you have lots of marks at the moment, it may be worth grinding out the rest to buy the Black War Tiger or whichever other one you may want, because when the pre-patch drops, they're gonna cost 50,000 honor instead, which might take you longer to get. Also, you can buy the level 60 rank 14 gear for only a couple marks each. I completely forgot about this. That's a little easier than the rank 14 grind was. All the same, whilst you will be ahead if you prepare honor in advance, honor gains are hugely improved in Wrath compared to TBC, and the Savage Gladiator blue gear you're gonna start off with cost a ton of points as well. So all in all, you will be ahead, and if you're a hardcore PvPer, you'll probably want to look into it, but not enormously so. Next up, probably one of my least favorite things to talk about in Classic: weapon skill. I legitimately can't wait for this stat to be removed from the game. Seriously, what are the weapon trainers even for? You go to them to learn how to use a weapon, and then you have to take that weapon that apparently they've taught you how to use, and then go out into the world and learn how to use it yourself. Can I just give them 1,000 gold and they max my weapon skill for me? There we go, new gold sync idea, how about that? Anyways, if you play melee, you've been there, I've been there, you get a brand new shiny weapon, you get all excited, you click on your character's stats and find out you have like 57 skill out of 400. And by the way, as you already know, you got all of those points from hitting stuff when you were disarmed. So yeah, in short, go level your weapon skill up before Wrath happens. This goes for rogues more so than any other class, because they learn how to use axes in Wrath, and I've tested it on the pre-patch. You can learn axes in the pre-patch, and you start at skill level 1. Fun. Also, druids, make sure you learn how to go and use polearms. It's not like you need to train the weapon skill, but you do want to be able to equip them whenever they drop. In regards to training your weapon skill, I have 2 tips for you. Number 1, you don't get weapon skill from training dummies. I tried. It would be far too easy that way, wouldn't it? And secondly, you can no longer get weapon skill from targets that are immune. This used to work in TBC, where you could train on some units in Shadow Moon Valley, for example, who would banish, but now you actually have to be rolling on the hit table in order to gain skill. So the go-to training methods that should still work will be the Servants of Razalik in the Blasted Lands. These are just outside the crater where the Dark Portal is. Vroll the Destroyer, he's also in the Blasted Lands. He's in the building in the northwest. Or my personal favorite spot, the Ogre Spirits at the end of Dire Maul North. Just make sure you don't kill the last boss, and they should persist and be attackable indefinitely whilst you're fully AFK. Just don't leave it too long, or your character will eventually stop attacking and you'll get auto-logged out, and if you're logged out for too long, you'll push back to the start of the dungeon, and it's kind of a bit of a run back there. Also keep in mind that fist weapons are trained under the unarmed section, and there are a lot of very good fist weapons in Wrath, so that is definitely worth leveling too. Inscription is going to be in the pre-patch. That means glyphs are going to be in the pre-patch, so you'll want to see which ones are best for your character. Early on, before you're level 80, you won't be able to fill out every single glyph spot, and the best ones early will be selling for well more than what they are really worth. But I think the prices are going to come down really fast, because for the majority of specs in the entire game, you use the same glyphs forever. Also, your best glyphs may not exist in the game for a while. Some of them are bought in Northrend from a vendor or discovered via dailies. Nevertheless, any glyph is better than no glyph. The glyphs themselves can be equipped via a new tab where you find your talent trees, and they have 2 categories. There's major glyphs, which buff a certain ability by a large amount, lower its cooldown, or modify a spell entirely, and minor glyphs, which are quality of life or cosmetic for the most part, though there are a few minor glyphs which do buff damage, such as Paladin Sense Undead for one. Next up, I don't know about you, but over the course of the expansion, I accumulate a ton of gear, items, pets, mounts, and just random junk which I end up throwing into the bank when my inventory gets full, because you never know if that blue item could be useful in the future, and oh, I'm hanging on to this because I need it for my hit set of gear, and all the other random crap you've got sitting about. Now is the time to ditch all of this stuff. This is literally the MMO equivalent of playing Dark Souls, and you get given a really good item and you never use the item and it sits in your inventory forever because you don't want to waste it, but you don't know when you should use it either. I do this to myself all the time. New expansion is the time to clean things out and get the bank ready for the useless stuff from the next expansion, which you can slowly build up over the next 2 years or so. Also, I have to mention that pets and mounts can now be learned, and you will find them in a new tab under your character, which is going to free up a nice bit of space for you as well. Preparation is never done without mentioning gold, and I think gold matters a lot more in Wrath than it did for TBC, to be honest. Whilst there's no hard requirement of you need X amount, there are a certain number of things which you kind of are going to want. Real quick side note, as I've mentioned in this video, we don't know what level 70 boosted characters are going to get, but I kind of expect them to have flying by default as part of the boost. Again, time will tell whether that's true or not. Anyways, what are the things which cost gold, which I would not want to be without in Wrath? There's only 2 things which I would want on every character every single time I'm leveling. First, flying training and a mount. This costs a maximum of 300 gold when learned at your faction camp in Hellfire Peninsula. Secondly, cold weather flying. This is trained at Dalaran for 1000 gold at level 77 and lets you fly freely throughout Northrend. Now, there is a free mount you can obtain from Honest Max in K3 without cold weather flying, but it's limited to certain zones, and overall I just prefer to have the option to fly whenever and wherever. After mounts, which for me would be the bare minimum, there's then dual spec, which is just useful for so many different situations, PvP and PvE spec, tanking dungeons, then DPSing in the open world, whatever you want. It costs 1000 gold and can be learned at level 40 from your class trainer. It is a bit class dependent whether you'll want it though. I think some classes do benefit more where you can do different roles. So overall, going into Wrath, I would aim for at least 1300 gold, or 1000 if you already have flying, and 2300 if you also want dual spec as a priority, because this is before we even get into leveling professions, buying enchants, gems, glyphs, consumables, bags, bank spaces, and possibly all that for multiple specializations. Wrath can set you back in gold supremely surprisingly fast. And if you really are min-maxing, you can spend an unreal amount of gold this expansion. The Dalaran rings, which Abyss for many classes, are 8,500 gold. You can upgrade them as new patches come out, so they are a bit of an investment. Dark Moonkar Greatness is another Abyss trinket, which is made through inscription and will fetch an incredibly high price early on. We're talking tens of thousands of gold easily for this. There's the Traveler's Tundra Mammoth, aka the Repair Mount. That's 20,000 gold. If you're going all out, you could get through 50k in 1 week really easily. But of course that is not for everybody, it's certainly not for me. If you're short on gold at the moment in TBC, I always find a good place to start is clearing the map of quests, especially group quests at level cap, give you a nice chunk of bonus gold, and then you can vendor the greens you get from it. Also, there's plenty of daily quests in TBC as well. Now that the Isle of Quell will be fully unlocked on your server, you can plan a route around there as an easy way to farm some gold as well. Also, any badges that you have left over at this point in time, which you don't plan to spend on gear at all, can be traded in for epic gems via vendors in Shatrath or an Isle of Quell de Nas. They're not going to be worth a huge amount anymore, but hey, you might as well if you're not going to buy gear with them. So speaking about gear, what about that then? What if you've boosted, you're a returning player or a totally new player? Is it worth preparing gear for the Wrath launch? Honestly, I wouldn't bother at all. Obviously, you play your class as much as you want in the pre-patch. You're going to be passively picking up gear through questing, dungeons, raids and PvP, but do you need to? No, I don't think you do at all. Here's a clip, for example, of me on the beta. I'm on a template hunter. I haven't played hunter in a long time and certainly not in Wrath. It has TBC dungeon blue gear and a crossbow from one of the first quests in Wrath. And I'm AoEing down entire packs of mobs so easily. The power jump for our characters compared to the difficulty of the open world is an absolute chasm in Wrath of the Lich King. We really begin to power up as players in this expansion. Also, if you don't have any gear, you actually get to be excited about receiving green and blues as upgrades. If you're in Sunwell or even tier 5 gear, to be honest, you're going to be seeing what vendors for the most and then just forgetting about whatever you receive and throwing it in the vendor. In fact, Sunwell gear can last well into Wrath of the Lich King heroics and raids in some instances. It's not on the same power level as classic gear was going into TBC, but it certainly is good. More gear is always better when it comes to speed and just ease of leveling, of course, but it's not something I would prioritize. I would be farming gold above gear at this point in time. And I think those are some good ideas of things you could begin getting stuck into in the run up to Wrath on your main. Of course, there's so much more you can do depending on what you want out of the expansion, but having a foundation of things to sort out during this pre-patch period or before that is always a good idea. If you have any other good tips to share, do drop them down below and help your fellow classic players out. And as always guys, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I shall see you all in the next one very soon.
Alright, I think I'm gonna go get something to eat, and I will probably be back up when the server comes up.